Okay, so shifting gears this final week before the final into more of the mental side of things. We're going to just kind of look at the concept of breathing. I have some resources I sent you. Again, a lot of people say the words of just breathe or focus on your breathing, but they're not sure what to focus on. So ideally, we wanted to give you some options to consider should there be a need for any type of breathing work, and or just to kind of incorporate it into your life, right? To just kind of pay attention to this thing that's automatic and yet we can control it. So breathing is the coolest thing in that you don't have to think about it, but if you think about it, you could change it. It's kind of the only thing that we have that is in that way. So without further ado, let's kind of take a look at the resources. The first was this breathing assessment. Are you able to see if I plug one nostril and I breathe, is one more clogged than the other? And in that little test, my left one was a bit more clogged. The cool thing about the body is that it naturally shifts sides. So let's say that when you did this, your left side was clogged. If you were to try it right now, your right side might seem more clogged. So our breathing kind of has to work with our heart rate and our heart function, and it naturally does this shift, which is probably a good thing, because if you lost one side of your nostril, you would have this kind of backup, right? It's why we have two holes and not just one. So that was the first test to pay attention to. The second had to do with when you take a breath in, what is the amount of time that it takes, normal, not holding, you're not trying to force not breathing, but what is the normal amount of time when you're ready to take a breath again? And as you'll see in a second, a lot of you got 10 seconds or less. And so I'm not sure if you actually looked at the key down here on the bottom of the assignment or bottom of the webpage, but could be problematic. Your performance, your function is probably a little jacked up, is probably less than optimal because of this breathing issue, right? Less than 10 seconds. And we have to consider is part of this with anxiety, which is we're going to kind of look over in a second. So if I go to the assignment, again, 60% recognized, one nostril more plugged than the other. Right. Naturally hold your breath. So we've got two big buckets here, less than 10 seconds. And in the moments of finishing between I'm looking at this right before class and now, we see our biggest one is 11 to 20 seconds. So if I go back, right, to these two chunks and highlight them, there's where we're at. So problematic, maybe alarming, should look at this. 2, breathwork will likely enhance everything else you're doing. And now it's up to you to be like, well, is this something I'm actually going to put into practice or not? And what is breath work? Well, I gave you a part 2. The second assignment, and this is the same article, I'm just holding it in the bigger top section, is to simply utilize this follow along dot where you exhale, blow out, hold it, inhale, hold it. So between the in and the out of breath, there's a hold. Now consider why this might be useful. Many of us may panic, right? We're not sure that that breath is going to come. And so we kind of force it. If I am anxious, I have a fear of the future. So all of this is kind of connecting. If I basically broke this down, it's about 4 seconds each. And the key here is the hold. My guess to you is, those who actually performed this or looked at it, is that the hold after the exhale is what freaked you out the most, because you had to deal with no air in your body and you never do that. So I'm going to go through this twice. Feel free to follow along or continue doing what you're doing in the background, but just kind of want to get you this cadence. And the first time I'm going to do it watching. The second time through, I'm going to try to do it eyes closed and see if I match up. Staying big and puffed up in my inhale. Staying depleted, eyes closed. And I was off on my guess, right? Then I would go again. But can I feel calm in the holding, particularly in the exhale? That was kind of the key to this. And again, the link is there. If you're looking at it now and you're like, oh, I should give this a whirl. It's also very kind of hypnotic to be able to watch and do at the same time. This thing just keeps going. So you get to use your visual senses and locking it into breath. Similarly to when we, at the very beginning, when we laid on the ground and we stared at the wall and used that point to anchor our breathing, this is just kind of the movement of that air. Okay. Hitting back to, did the results of these tests make you more curious and interested in your breath? 60% said yes, right? Which is a win, right? Because breathing you have to do regardless, either you're going to be interested in it or not, you still have to do it. Got a quick question saying naturally meaning not trying to hold my breath. Right. So in the test for time, how long do you hold your breath? You're just going to take that inhale in and you're going to hold it, but it's a natural hold up until you first want to breathe again. So we're not trying to max out like we're underwater and trying to stay underwater as long as possible and like struggling. We take a breath in, we hang on to it. And the first time we really want to take a breath, we just check that time. Okay, so Jordan, hopefully that was helpful to you. Did you try the animated box breathing? Got the yes. About how long? Most of you, and again, I understand, in and out. Hopefully you recognize there was a bit of value to it as a breathing practice, if anything, to follow along and to work on those holds. Second is 2 to 3 minutes, right? Then we got longer. Okay, again, is with the box, you could, for example, if you were trying to develop the holds as you go box side by box side, perhaps if the toughest thing to do is to keep your breath held after the exhale, so an empty hold, perhaps once you get the line, then you can wait until it's halfway up the next one. And then you can wait until it's up 2 sides. So eventually, again, you're just going to be building the endurance of these holds without freaking out, because again, you can see, quote unquote, when it's okay to breathe again. You see it reaching the corner is when you're going to breathe. So the anxiety tends to drop. Now, if someone had a bag over your head and you didn't know when you could breathe again, yes, you're absolutely going to panic. Okay, so again, breathing is a means in order, this idea of meditation, this idea of being able to calm and come into your body, and to be able to change your state, your psychological mental state with your breath. Okay. Do you think you could get the timing right? I did not get it right. About over half of you said yes. Then, specific question, how might box breathing help someone with anxiety issues? Let me go back to the better viewed. Okay. You breathe out the anger air. I like that. Seconded. Helps people calm down and focus. Again, on what, right? Are you thinking about the dot? But yes, I could take all my frantic mental stuff and just focus on the dot, focus on the internal breathing. Calm your nerves, slow the pace, again, slowing down. Remember, anxiety is a fear. So if anxiety is mouth open, short, really shallow into it, then something to combat anxiety or anxious breathing, and I would anxiously breathe when I'm in an anxious state, would be the opposite. So instead of the mouth, I'm going to use the nose. Instead of the short, I'm going to say deep. And instead of the high, I'm going to get it down into my belly. So what would be an anxious breath is a deep, calming breath would be taking your time, filling fully, taking your time, emptying fully, knowing that the empty will automatically cause an inhale versus having to force the inhale, trusting that on the empty, your body will really refill itself automatically. Okay, come back to the summary. Last question. So we talked about anxiety to depressed. Now let's see the opposite. If one was sluggish and depressed, so they're already slow and deep and calm, almost too calm, almost lethargic or like inanimate, what type of breathing might help stimulate them? Okay, I said nose or mouth. If we want to stimulate, it's mouth. So ideally, this would be it. If it's deep or slow, again, if I'm trying to animate, it is going to be shallow and fast. So if you follow along with me right here, literally for about 10 seconds, you're just sitting there and you want to rev your body up, how does breathing like this do it? Looks like this. Like in my body, it's all of a sudden I'm stimulated. I get a little energy kick. Okay, fast, shallow mouth. So if I'm too low and depressed, I could go into that very quick chest breathing to stimulate myself back up. Okay. Stop share and stop recording.